I looked down at our dinner table, the candles still flickering as Serena's words hung in the air between us. 2 years together, countless memories, and a mortgage that was all mine. I had worked overtime for years to afford this apartment, scrimping and saving while she spent freely. Now she sat across from me, casually announcing that her 2 friends were moving in rent-free and I would be sleeping on the couch in my own home. I simply nodded and said, "Okay." Little did she know, I had already made up my mind. Before we dive into what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button, and get ready for a story about standing up for yourself. I first met Serena at a local coffee shop in downtown Seattle. I was working on some coding projects when she asked if she could share my table. With her bright smile and contagious laugh, I was instantly captivated. We exchanged numbers, and within a week we were on our first date at a small Italian restaurant near the waterfront. Those first 6 months were magical. We explored the city together, took weekend trips to nearby mountains, and spent countless evenings talking about our dreams and future plans. Serena worked as a marketing coordinator for a cosmetics company while I was a software developer at a mid-sized tech firm. Our careers were both on upward trajectories, and it felt like we were building something special. After a year of dating, we decided it made sense to move in together. At the time, I was renting a 1-bedroom apartment, and she suggested we find a place that could be ours. I had been saving diligently for years, with the goal of owning property, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity to take that step. "Why keep throwing money away on rent when you could invest in something permanent?" she had said. The logic made sense to me. I spent months searching for the right property, eventually finding a 2-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood with good amenities. The process of securing a mortgage was grueling. I provided years of financial records, went through multiple credit checks, and put down a substantial down payment that represented my life savings up to that point. Through it all, Serena was supportive and excited, talking about how we would decorate our place. But when the paperwork arrived, I noticed something important. Since I was providing the entire down payment and taking on the mortgage, the deed would be solely in my name. "Is that okay?" I had asked her, feeling slightly uncomfortable. "Of course. It is your money after all. We can always add my name later," she replied easily. I signed the documents, feeling a surge of pride. At 32, I was now a homeowner. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the satisfaction of knowing I had achieved something significant. Moving day was a whirlwind of boxes, furniture arrangements, and celebratory takeout on the living room floor. As we clinked our plastic cups of champagne, I felt like everything was falling into place. Serena and I established that we would split the monthly expenses, with me covering the mortgage and her handling utilities and groceries. At first, our arrangement seemed to work, but slowly I began noticing concerning patterns. Serena would often forget to pay her portion of the bills, claiming she was short that month due to unexpected expenses. When I checked our shared expense tracking app, I noticed regular charges from high-end boutiques, expensive restaurants with names I did not recognize, and salon visits that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I had to network with some important clients, she would explain when I questioned these expenses. Appearance matters in my industry. While I packed lunches and limited my spending to build our future, Serena seemed to live as though our financial goals were disconnected. 6 months into living together, I realized she had contributed to household expenses exactly twice. The frequency of her nights out also increased. What started as occasional happy hours with colleagues became regular weekend brunches that stretched into dinner, followed by clubs that kept her out until the early morning hours. Often she would not even text to let me know her plans had changed. "You are not my father, Augustine," she snapped, when I expressed concern about not hearing from her for nearly 24 hours. "I do not need to check in with you about every little thing." Our intimacy began to suffer as well. Where we once could not keep our hands off each other, we now went days without meaningful connection. Conversations became transactional, focused on household logistics rather than each other's lives and feelings. I tried to address these issues several times, but Serena had a way of turning conversations around, making me feel controlling or overly sensitive for having concerns. After a while, I stopped bringing things up, convincing myself that every relationship goes through phases, and we would eventually find our balance again. Then there were her friends, Jessica and Amanda. I met them about 3 months after Serena and I started dating. Jessica worked with Serena at the cosmetics company, while Amanda was a friend from college who had recently moved to Seattle after a bad breakup. At first they seemed nice enough, if a bit loud and dramatic for my taste. But as our relationship progressed, I noticed they had little regard for boundaries. They would show up at our apartment, unannounced sometimes, with bottles of wine, expecting to be entertained regardless of what plans we might have had. "Augustine does not mind, do you, babe?" Serena would say, not really asking. These impromptu gatherings became more frequent, often lasting until the early morning hours, with little consideration for the fact that I had to be up early for work. When I did join them, I felt like an outsider in my own home. They spoke and shared references and inside jokes, occasionally exchanging glances when I spoke that made me feel as though I was being silently mocked. "Your boyfriend is so serious," I overheard Amanda say to Serena once while I was in the kitchen. "Does he ever loosen up?" "He is good for some things," Serena had replied with a laugh that made my stomach twist. In recent weeks, both Jessica and Amanda had been spending more time at our place. I learned through fragments of conversation that Jessica's roommate was moving out, raising her portion of the rent, and Amanda was having trouble with her landlord over noise complaints. Several times I came home from work to find them already there, their belongings scattered across our living room, making themselves completely at home without any acknowledgement of my presence. It was a Thursday evening when everything changed. I had just finished a particularly challenging project at work that had kept me at the office until almost 8. All I wanted was to come home, have a quiet dinner, and relax. Instead, I walked into an apartment filled with laughter and the smell of the expensive takeout I had specifically mentioned we needed to cut back on to save money. Serena, Jessica, and Amanda were lounging in the living room, surrounded by empty wine bottles and containers of half-eaten Thai food. They barely acknowledged my arrival, too engrossed in whatever story Amanda was dramatically recounting. I quietly made a plate of the leftovers and sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling through my phone as their conversation continued. It was when I heard my name that I tuned back in. "So, you have not told Augustine yet?" Jessica asked. "Told me what?" I looked up, suddenly alert. The three of them exchanged glances before Serena straightened up, smoothing her expression into one of casual confidence. "Oh, I was going to talk to you about this tonight anyway," she said, setting down her wine glass. "Jessica and Amanda are having some housing issues. Jessica cannot afford her place anymore since her roommate left, and Amanda's landlord is trying to evict her." I nodded already, sensing where this was going. "So I told them they could move in here." Serena continued her tone, suggesting this was a completely reasonable proposal. "We have the space, and it would be temporary until they figure things out." "Move in here," I repeated, my brain struggling to process what she was suggesting. "But we only have 2 bedrooms. Where would they stay?" Serena waved her hand dismissively. "They can take our room. I will sleep in the spare room and you can sleep on the couch. It is really comfortable and you fall asleep watching TV half the time anyway." I stared at her, waiting for some indication that this was a joke. None came. "And how much would they contribute to the mortgage and expenses?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Well, that is the thing." Serena leaned forward, adopting a sympathetic expression that did not reach her eyes. "They are in a really tight spot financially right now, so they would be staying rent-free until they get back on their feet. I already told them it would not be a problem." Jessica and Amanda at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, though Amanda quickly added, "We would totally contribute to groceries, though." Sometimes I felt as though I had been punched in the stomach. 3 years of overtime shifts, giving up vacations, cutting back on everything from coffee to new clothes, all to buy this home. And now Serena was giving it away to her friends without even consulting me. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to give up my bedroom in the apartment that I bought, sleep on the couch indefinitely, and let your friends live here completely free of charge?" Serena rolled her eyes as if I was being difficult. "It is not forever, Augustin. Just until they figure things out. And it is not like you paid for this place all by yourself. We are partners, remember. Except I had paid for it myself. Every penny of the down payment came from my savings. Every mortgage payment came from my account. Serena had contributed nothing to the purchase of this home that she now felt entitled to offer to her friends." In that moment, something inside me went very still. I looked at Serena, really looked at her, and saw for the first time how little regard she had for me, for my feelings, for all I had worked for. I saw the entitlement, the casual cruelty, the complete lack of respect. "My friends are moving in, rent-free. You can sleep on the couch," she repeated, her tone making it clear this was not a request, but a statement of what would be happening. And I simply said, "Okay." Relief washed over her face, quickly followed by surprise at how easily I had agreed. She had clearly been expecting an argument. "Great. They will start bringing their stuff this weekend," she said brightly, turning back to her friends with a triumphant smile. I excused myself, saying I needed a shower after my long day. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, not recognizing the man who had just agreed to be displaced in his own home. Who was this pushover? How had I allowed things to get to this point? That night, I lay awake on what would soon be my permanent sleeping arrangement, staring at the ceiling as Serena's soft snores came from the bedroom. My mind was racing, replaying not just this evening, but our entire relationship. The pattern was clear now. I had been making excuses for her behavior, overlooking red flags, convincing myself things would improve if I just tried harder, was more understanding, gave her more time. By morning, I knew what I needed to do. The next day at work, I called in a favor and took Friday off. Then I made 3 important calls. The first was to a locksmith, scheduling them to come to my apartment the following day. The second was to my bank, confirming that Serena's name was not on any of my accounts or property documents. The third was to a lawyer, briefly explaining my situation and getting confirmation that legally I had every right to decide who lived in my home. That evening, I suggested to Serena that she should take Jessica and Amanda to their favorite brunch spot on Saturday to celebrate their upcoming move. She readily agreed, pleased at my apparent acceptance of the situation. "I knew you would understand once you thought about it," she said, kissing my cheek. "This is going to be so much fun." I smiled and nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm now that I had made my decision. Saturday morning arrived, and Serena was up early getting ready for brunch. She spent nearly an hour on her makeup and outfit, excited for a day out with her friends. "Do not wait up," she called over her shoulder as she left. "We might go shopping after brunch, and you know how that can turn into an all-day thing." I did know. I had seen the credit card bills. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I sprang into action. The locksmith arrived promptly at 10, changing every lock in the apartment and providing me with the only sets of keys. It cost extra for the weekend service, but it was worth every penny. Next, I went to the store and bought several large suitcases and packing boxes. I returned home and began the process of carefully packing Serena's belongings. Despite everything, I took care with her, things wrapping fragile items in paper, folding her clothes neatly and making sure everything was organized. It was strange how methodical I felt, how detached. With each item I packed, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of my home and myself. By mid-afternoon, the apartment looked noticeably different. Her decorative touches were gone, her presence diminished, and already the space felt more like mine again. I arranged all her packed belongings in the hallway outside our apartment door, neatly stacked and labeled. Then I sat down and composed a brief message. "Serena, I have decided to end our relationship. Your disregard for my feelings and contributions has made it clear that we want different things. Your belongings are packed outside. The locks have been changed. Please respect my decision, and do not contact me except through email regarding any remaining logistics. Augustine. I hit send, then put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and began the process of reclaiming my space. I moved the couch back to its original position, made myself a proper dinner for the first time in weeks, and actually enjoyed eating it at my own dining table. Around 7 that evening, my phone began to vibrate continuously as messages and calls came pouring in. I glanced at the notifications without opening them. Serena had discovered she could not enter the apartment. Based on the increasingly frantic and angry tone of her texts, she had also found her belongings in my message. You cannot do this, open the door right. Now this is my home too. I am calling the police. The messages from Jessica and Amanda soon followed. You are such a controlling asshole. She deserves so much better than you. You cannot just throw someone out without notice. I remained calm, knowing I was within my legal rights. When the police did show up about an hour later, I presented them with my mortgage documents, confirming I was the sole owner of the property. Serena had never signed a lease, had no legal claim to the apartment, and had not contributed financially to its purchase or maintenance. After speaking with both of us separately, the officers informed Serena that this was a civil matter, not a criminal one, and that based on the documentation, I had the right to determine who lived in my home. I watched from the window as Serena broke down crying on the sidewalk, the officers awkwardly patting her shoulder before leaving. Jessica and Amanda helped her load her things into their cars, all three of them shooting venomous glares at my window. The next 24 hours were a blur of notifications. My phone buzzed constantly with messages ranging from rage to bargaining to tearful pleading. Serena's emotional tactics ran the full spectrum. I cannot believe you would do this to me after everything we have been through. Please just talk to me, we can work this out. I am sorry if I hurt you, but this is extreme. I have nowhere to go. If you ever loved me, you will at least let me come get the rest of my things. Then came the social warfare. Mutual friends began messaging me, having heard Serena's version of events. According to her, I had blindsided her, thrown her out without warning, and was now holding her possessions hostage. Some friends immediately took her side, calling me heartless and cruel. I remained silent through it all, not engaging, not explaining. I knew that responding would only fuel the drama, and honestly, I was too exhausted to defend myself. Those who really knew me would either trust that I had my reasons, or at least hear my side before judging. By Sunday evening, the tone of Serena's messages began to shift. Realizing that her emotional manipulation was not working, she attempted a more rational approach. I understand you are upset about the situation with Jessica and Amanda. I should have discussed it with you first. How about a compromise? I will tell them they cannot stay, and we can go back to how things were. I miss you and our home. It was the first acknowledgement that she had done anything wrong, but it was too little, too late. I finally broke my silence with a single message. There is nothing to discuss. I have packed everything that belongs to you. If I missed anything, email me a list, and we can arrange a time for you to collect it with a third party present. This decision is final. I included screenshots of our text conversation from months earlier, where she had clearly acknowledged that the apartment was mine alone, as well as screenshots of our expense tracking app, showing her minimal contributions over the past year. The evidence of our unbalanced relationship was laid bare in black and white. The messages from our mutual friends began to change as well. Several reached out privately to ask for my side of the story. When I calmly explained what had happened with evidence to back it up, many apologized for jumping to conclusions. Some even admitted that they had noticed concerning patterns in Serena's behavior but had not wanted to get involved. By Monday morning, Serena seemed to accept that her manipulation tactics were not going to work. Her final message was more dignified than I had expected. I understand now that this relationship is over. I am staying with Jessica temporarily. Please email me about arranging to pick up any remaining items. I am sorry. Things ended this way. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, and mine again. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt like I could breathe freely. The days after Serena moved out were strange. The apartment felt both emptier and more spacious. I found myself sitting in different spots, using rooms I had gradually ceded to Serena and her friends. I slept diagonally across my bed simply because I could. The silence was sometimes deafening. I had grown accustomed to constant background noise, to navigating around other people's needs and moods. Now it was just me, and I realized with some surprise that I had forgotten who that was. The first week was the hardest. Despite everything, there was a hollow ache where Serena had been. 2 years of my life had been invested in our relationship, and its absence left a void. I questioned my decision many times, wondering if I had overreacted, if I should have tried harder to communicate, if I had thrown away something that could have been fixed. But then I would remember her face as she told me I would be sleeping on the couch in my own home. I would recall the casual dismissal, the entitled assumption that my space, my investment, my comfort were all less important than her friend's convenience. And I knew I had made the right choice. I arranged through email for Serena to collect a few remaining items we had missed. My brother came over to stand with me as she and Amanda quickly gathered the last of her things. The four of us stood in awkward silence, the women refusing to make eye contact, my brother's supportive presence, keeping the interaction brief and civil. After they left, my brother stayed for a beer. "You look better already," he told me. "I have not seen you this relaxed in years." It was true. Despite the emotional turmoil of the breakup, I felt a sense of lightness. I had stood up for myself, established boundaries, and reclaimed my life. The relief far outweighed the loss. 2 weeks after the breakup, I joined a support group for people who had experienced manipulative relationships. Sitting in a circle with strangers who nodded in recognition at my story was oddly comforting. I was not alone in having missed the red flags, in having made excuses, in having allowed boundaries to be crossed until I barely recognized myself. "It is like the frog in boiling water," one woman said. "If you drop a frog in boiling water, it jumps right out. But if you put it in cool water and slowly heat it up, the frog never notices until it is too late." That analogy stuck with me. The relationship with Serena had changed so gradually that I had not noticed how unhealthy it had become until that final shocking demand. I reconnected with friends I had gradually lost touch with during my relationship with Serena. Some had tried to warn me about her behavior, but had backed off when I defended her. They welcomed me back without judgment, and I found myself remembering who I used to be in their company, rediscovering parts of myself that had been suppressed. I began to focus more on my career, pouring my energy into projects I was passionate about. My boss noticed the change, commenting on my renewed enthusiasm and focus. 3 months after the breakup, I was offered a promotion that came with a substantial raise. I also returned to hobbies I had abandoned. I joined a local hiking group, started playing guitar again, and even took a cooking class. My apartment gradually transformed as I redecorated, replacing the generic items Serena had chosen with things that reflected my personal taste and interests. 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Serena at a coffee shop. It was bound to happen eventually, in a city where we frequented many of the same places. She was alone, looking slightly less polished than I remembered. We acknowledged each other with awkward nods, neither making a move to approach. Through mutual friends, I had heard that she had moved in with Jessica, but their living situation was already strained. Apparently, Serena's habits of not contributing fairly were causing tension. Seeing her did not trigger the emotional response I had feared. There was no anger, no lingering attraction, not even much resentment. She was just someone I used to know, a chapter in my life that had concluded. A year after what my friends now jokingly called the Great Eviction, my apartment truly felt like home. I had painted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and filled the space with books, music, and art that I loved. I had also started dating again cautiously at first, but with a much clearer sense of what I wanted and what I would not tolerate. I met Laura at a friend's barbecue. She was a children's librarian with a quick wit and genuine warmth that drew me in immediately. Our relationship developed slowly, both of us, taking time to reveal ourselves to establish trust. When she came to my apartment for the first time, she complimented me on making the space so distinctly mine. "You can tell a lot about a person by how they live," she observed, running her fingers along my bookshelf. "This place feels honest." That word, honest, resonated with me. My relationship with Laura was built on honest communication, mutual respect, and equal partnership. When we disagreed, we discussed it openly. When one of us needed space, we respected it. And when we decided, after 8 months of dating, that she would move in, we had detailed conversations about finances, responsibilities, and expectations. Laura insisted on contributing her fair share to household expenses, even though I earned more than she did. "A partnership means we both bring what we can to the table," she said firmly. The contrast with Serena could not have been more stark. Looking back on the entire experience, I realized how much I had grown. The painful ending with Serena had forced me to evaluate what I wanted in a relationship and in my life. It had taught me to recognize red flags, to establish and maintain boundaries, and to value myself enough to walk away from situations that diminished me. The most important lesson was that sometimes losing something that feels important can lead to finding something much more valuable: your self-respect. In giving up a relationship that was draining me, I had reclaimed my autonomy, my space, and ultimately my happiness. I still have the text message Serena sent me that fateful day saved as a reminder of how far I have come. "My friends are moving in, rent-free. You can sleep on the couch." Sometimes the most painful moments can be the greatest catalysts for positive change. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ended up changing your life for the better? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video if you found my experience helpful. Subscribe for more real-life stories and share with anyone who might need a reminder that it is okay to stand up for yourself even when it is difficult. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is put yourself first.